We have the great privilege this morning of taking time to look into the Word of God. And a lot like that song, we are the poor and powerless. And yet we have this ability because He's given us this ability to just come and hear the Word of God. And as that works in us, it will start to work through us. And you can imagine, we can't even imagine right now what good things God will work through us over time and in the future because of and by His Word as we take the time to listen to it and take it in. So good job being here. We have our grade 7s, the kids who are going into grade 7 are here in church with us today instead of in kids' church, which is where they've been every week prior to this. And one of them asked me this morning, he said, maybe you could just talk for 1 minute, he said. Sorry to tell you, that's not going to happen. And for those of you who have been around, you know that's not going to happen. I do have my timer to make sure I don't talk for too many minutes, but 1 minute is already passed. I've already talked for 1 minute. All right. We are in a new series on the 10 Commandments. This is a great series for just dropping in. People won't be here maybe every week during the summer. And so this way you can drop in, hear one of the commandments, and get a lot out of it, even if you haven't followed along with all of them. They do build in a kind of progression. There's unity to them. There's a sequence to them, but you can get a lot out of them even just looking at one at a time. The subtitle of the series is Foundations of the World, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we always start a message with an illustration. And our illustration today is going to be about powers, gods, and distraction. Powers, gods, and distraction. So in the ancient world, so understanding especially the first commandment, we have to get our minds a little bit into what it was like before the 10 Commandments came, way before Christianity came, before the Bible was really there, and what life was like for our ancestors. And we know, of course, they all worshiped different gods, and we don't do that. At least most of us in the western part of the world don't worship little gods anymore in an explicit, outright way. We don't have little statues that we bow down to in our houses. There is a way in which we are totally different from our ancestors, right? None of us would ever say, yeah, I worship that tree over there. But there's another way in which we are exactly the same as our ancestors. We have the same temptations. And so we're going to talk about that today, powers, gods, and distraction. So the world is full of lots of different powers. This is one way that you can think of life, okay? There's lots of different realms of life, and they have their own systems for punishment and reward in them. Like if we think about money and wealth and abundance, okay? This is a kind of power that exists in the world, right? If you have money, you can do a lot of stuff with it, yes? And that's a pleasant experience, right? Having a lot of money to spend is a pleasant experience. It gives you certain powers and abilities. And of course, there are lots of rules to it, and we have to pay some attention to this. The Bible does not say, get rid of all your money, never think about money in any way. But as we saw earlier from Jesus, the main point of the Bible around any of these little areas of life, powers, is that we can't let them become the center. We can't let these powers and areas of life become the thing that take us over and dominate our thinking all the time. That's when that happened in the ancient worlds, that's when you end up with gods. Now, we don't quite go that far because we have the Bible, and that's been deeply embedded in our culture. You don't literally worship coins, let's say. But many people spend much of their time focused on these things, and you know how you can get caught up in it. Those things that you can get caught up in, those are the powers we're talking about. And they are spiritual in some way, or they become spiritual as we talk about them. So in the ancient world, I'm going to put up, anybody know which Greek god this is? Just by his staff? Hermes. And we talked about Hermes a little bit last week because we were finishing our series on the book of Acts, and who was mistaken for the god Hermes in the book of Acts? The Apostle Paul was mistaken for the god Hermes because he did miracles, and they thought, well, the gods must come down, and they thought he must be Hermes. Anybody remember why those people in that town of Lystra in what is modern-day Turkey, why did they think Paul was Hermes rather than some other god? Because he talked too much. That's right. Because he talked a lot. He was like a fast talker. And Hermes, you could think of him as the salesman of the gods in the Greek pantheon. He was a lot of other things too. He was a healer. That's why this staff is sometimes associated with different medical things. But he was the god of wealth and the god of commerce. And you can think of him like the salesman of the gods. He was like the used car salesman god. He would come and just talk a lot and get you to buy something. Yeah, you want to buy something, see Hermes. And so people who wanted to do that in the ancient world, people who got caught up in that, right? And it was different for different cultures. We're just using the Greek gods because they are in some ways the most familiar to most of us, I think. But in cultures all over the world, people who got caught up with that kind of a power, right? With the power of money and the power, or even just the power of before money, of abundance, right? Growing lots of crops, having lots of wealth in different ways. People ended up personifying that, right? Giving it a name and then worshiping statues in many different ways. That the idea was if they do that, then they would get more. Okay? And we don't go that far, but we very much get caught up in this kind of a thing, very much. Another example, I'll give you 3 examples. Another area that we can think of as a power, or kind of a realm of power in the world, is love, right? Love. Interpersonal relationships between human beings, all the way from, love and dedication in marriage, which is the best expression of it, long-term love between a man and a woman, all the way down to the not-so-good expressions of it, right? Like erotic love and being focused only on that. It's not a bad thing, of course, but being focused only on that. That can be the kind of thing that grabs people and they get caught up in it and they can't get out of it. They think about it all the time. It's the only thing. Even marriage, even the best expression of this, which is a very, very good thing, the Bible is saying even that can't be the very center of life. It can't be. This is, what Greek god is this? Anybody know? This is Cupid, or in the Greek, Eros, right, where we get the word erotic, this little winged angel. This is Aphrodite, or Venus in the Latin pantheon. And I couldn't give you an actual statue, a picture of an actual statue of Aphrodite. Why could I not put up an actual picture of Aphrodite, like a Greek statue? Because she's always naked. Sometimes she's only half naked, but sometimes she's 100% naked. Sometimes it's even worse than that. It's even less appropriate than just her being naked. She was the ideal beauty in the ancient world, and of course, Cupid or Eros here, she would send out to, make people fall in love, right? So there are all these rules around it. And people personified her because they wanted love so much, love in different ways. They personified that into a goddess, right? And then worshiped the goddess to try and get what they want, get what they need. Aphrodite, love, and Eros. And here's the third one. This is a picture of course, the Stanley Cup. And I don't actually know. I think this is recent. I think this is 2025, but I'm not sure. But this is my picture to symbolize the area of life, the realm of life of victory. Victory. Winning. Competition. Right? And this was personified in the ancient world as a god of war, really. Now, I know this is an actual war, right? Although sometimes it seems like it. It seems like it's actual war. But it kind of fills that same realm in our society, right? We don't individually, most of us don't engage in war anymore. In the ancient world, they did. And so this is Ares, or Mars, the god of war. And you can see his helmet down there and his shield, and he's got his sword strapped on, all this sorts of things. So these things, we get caught up in them. So the way that we are totally different than our ancestors is that we don't turn them into visible idols anymore. We don't make statues that personify like money and then bow down and worship it. So in that sense, we're totally different than our ancestors. But in another sense, we are exactly the same. Because life is full of all these distractions, all these things that are trying to get our attention and trying to get us to give ourselves to them and will be rewarded if we do. That's the idea or the promise. And we are drawn to all those things just like our ancestors. And there's many more than just these three, many more. These are what the Bible often calls idols, right? Not visible idols, but the ones that are in the heart. So that's our illustration for today. This series that we're going into, the Ten Commandments, I'll just say a few things about the series as we open up for today. This is the oldest written form of the Ten Commandments on stone. There is actually the oldest form that the Ten Commandments exist in physically is in the Dead Sea Scrolls. There is a papyrus, a piece of paper that dates to 100 years before Christ that has a portion of the Ten Commandments written on it. The piece of paper is more than 2,000 years old. Isn't that stunning? That's amazing. It has the Ten Commandments written on it. Of course, they were written they're much older than that. They were written in the 1200s BC. But this particular one, I decided to make the graphic for this series because it's kind of intriguing in a couple of different ways. It's from the 400s or 500s AD, so it's not as old, but it's very old. It has all 10 commandments on one side of a stone it's pretty big. I don't know if I put the picture. No, I don't think I did. I don't think I put the picture there. But there's a picture. It's maybe about like that and like that, okay? And it's got all the 10 commandments in Hebrew. And it is actually in an archaic form of Hebrew. So the same script that the Israelites used way, way back. Not the script they used in the 400s and 500s, but the script that they used in the 1200s BC. And this particular stone was over the door of a Jewish synagogue. So when you walked in, you were walking in underneath the 10 commandments into the synagogue. And it's intriguing because the fact that it's in that ancient script suggests that for all those years, the Jews were copying the 10 commandments, not even just word for word, but in the exact same style that they were originally written. And if you know the book of Exodus, which we looked at recently, you'll know that who wrote the 10 commandments? Who wrote them in the stone? God himself. It says they were written by the finger of God and that the writing was the handwriting of God himself given to Moses. Crazy. So we might talk about that more as we go on. I want to remind you a little bit of the context. We did a whole series on Exodus. This is from Psalm 18, verse 15, and this is the psalmist, much later, remembering the parting of the Red Sea. So in Exodus, the sequence of events, if you remember, the Israelites, they were slaves in Egypt. There were 10 plagues that were sent by the Lord to get them out of Egypt. The Egyptians finally kicked them out, but then chased them down, and they got caught at the Red Sea. And they were stuck. And the Lord parted the waters of the Red Sea, and they walked through on dry ground. How did he part the waters? What did he use to do it? The wind. It says a wind blew and parted the waters. So the Israelites escaped. After they go through the Red Sea, they are, I can't even imagine. They sing and dance for probably an entire day after they get through the Red Sea. They're at the highest of heights, emotionally, in their history. Then they start to starve. They don't have enough food. And they immediately go down to the lowest of lows. So after the Red Sea, and even a little bit before, it's like this roller coaster for the Israelites. And you've experienced this same sort of thing in your life, where we get to places where we just trust God and we're so thankful and everything's going right. And then, I can't trust him. I can't see him. I'm overwhelmed by the darkness right now. And then back up. And sometimes it seems like that's what life is. It's just this roller coaster of faith. But the 10 Commandments are given at this moment after they've been on this incredible roller coaster. And actually they're terrified at the moment they're given the 10 Commandments. They're not doing particularly well, the Israelites, at that moment. But this is the psalmist much later remembering that moment. And this is striking to me. I want you to think about this with me for a minute. the way he describes here the parting of the Red Sea, he says, the valleys of the sea were exposed, and the foundations of the world laid bare at your rebuke, Lord, at the blast of breath from your nostrils. So there's all kinds of things going on here. He's sort of envisioning the Lord like a very strong animal, right? Like a bull. Blast of wind from his nostrils. That's just to emphasize how strong Yahweh is. Yahweh, the Lord, Jehovah. When you see in the Bible, Lord in the Old Testament in all capital letters, that means it's a translation of the divine name, the name Yahweh, the Lord. But we also see here this imagery. The valleys of the sea laid bare, they were exposed. The foundations of the world were laid bare. And in a sense, for the Israelites, they were always really scared of water. Okay? Water, they weren't seafaring people. They didn't go out on the ocean. Water is kind of scary, right? Even this last week, the tragedy that's just happened in Texas from the floods, right? Water can kill you. It can destroy. It's dark. It's chaotic. And that is the theme around water for the most part in the Old Testament. It's darkness. It's chaos. You can't tell what's underneath it. When you were a kid, did you like going and swimming in a lake where you couldn't see the bottom? Whoa, what's down there, right? Probably Ogopogo, right? Or the Loch Ness Monster. That's probably what's down there. It's going to get you. So the idea here is that the Lord, it's not only that he saved them, but he exposed what was under darkness. He cleared that dark water away, that chaos, and he exposed dry ground. And the Israelites thought of this in terms of we could see the foundations of the world when we looked down there, when we walked through it. And if you think about that figuratively, right, like as a metaphor, this is also what happens with the Ten Commandments. The Lord is showing the Israelites, and through them, the whole world, the foundations of the world. What the world is really like. The world is this chaotic place where we don't know what's right and what's wrong. We don't know what to do. I've got this person telling me to do this person telling me to do this. It's chaos. And the Lord, in the Ten Commandments, the Lord clears all of that away. He blasts away the chaos, and he says, this is the foundation of the world. This is what the world is really like. And if you want to succeed at life, this is how you must live. The Ten Commandments, you can write this in your notes if you want, they are principles that govern the universe. That's what they are. They are not just arbitrary rules. They are not even really rules. They are not called commandments in Scripture. They're just called the 10 words. The Lord spoke these 10 words, these 10 principles, these 10 truths about life. They are the way that the Lord intended life to operate. And when we do not operate by them, life does not work. You will run into, as they say often these days, you will run into reality. The Lord is reality. All right, so here it is. We'll start to go through. We're just going to go through 3 verses today. And we have a couple other verses we'll use to explain some of these. But this is Exodus 20, and this is one of the places you can find the 10 Commandments, also in Deuteronomy. And it begins, as I said, it says, and God spoke all these words. The first thing that he tells them in this section, in the second verse, is he tells them, I'll entitle this section of the first commandment as I am the Lord. And it's very short, but there's a lot packed into this. And so we're going to unpack it a little bit today. This is verse 2. So God spoke these words, and here is the first word sort of comes in 2 verses. Verse 2 and 3. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. We can easily read it over and think, okay, yeah, But you need to stop and think about what is happening here and why this is being said to the Israelites and what actually all of these words mean, because there is a lot going on here. The first thing that he says is he reminds them of his name. Right? As I said earlier, if we see Lord in the Old Testament, all in capital letters, it means what? It means Yahweh. Let's just use that as the easiest reference, right? The old way of translating it was Jehovah. The newer way that we think is right now, but we're not 100% sure, is Yahweh. We actually don't know how the word was pronounced, but what does it mean? If we remember, this is what it is in Hebrew, well, transliterated from Hebrew. It's just 4 consonants. It's YHWH. This is what he says, I am Yahweh. We guess that these are the correct vowels, or we think. I mean, this is a pretty good theory. These are the vowels that were originally used. It was pronounced Yahweh. Was the name given, it was actually given first to Abraham, although we don't know all the circumstances, but it seems like they kind of forgot it after Abraham. And then it was given to Moses again at the burning bush when Moses was commissioned by Yahweh, by the Lord, to go back into Egypt and to bring the Israelites out. And here is that verse from Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. God said to Moses, I am who I am. What he says there is, I am Yahweh. This is what you are to say to the Israelites, Yahweh, or I am, has sent me to you. So this is what it means. This will be a reminder for most of us. This is a very deep name. It's very deep. It means something, it literally means I am. But what does that mean? It means something like he is the God upon which all existence depends. He is the source of everything. He is the God. And this is completely new for the Israelites. I think it's hard for us to understand. We talked about this a little bit in our series on Exodus. It's hard for us to understand how radical, how outside their thinking and their view of the world this idea was. That this God, the Lord, I am, he is a totally different kind of thing than what they were used to thinking of as gods. Right? We saw at the beginning, what did they usually call gods in the ancient world? These powers in life, right? They would call, like these Israelites are coming out of Egypt, right? So they had Ra, who was the sun god, right? So the sun is a god, and he kind of rules us in some way, but the sun wasn't in control of everything, right? There was a god for the ocean. There was a god for under the world, under the ground, right? Like hell or the underworld. There was a god, we saw earlier, a goddess of love. There were gods for all these different areas of life. And in fact, there were some really small gods in the ancient world too. Like, the god of this field, the god of that little river over there, right? All of these were considered gods. And if you think about that for a minute, if that is what you'd been used to thinking of as God, right? The God of that tree over there. The Lord is a totally different kind of thing in every way. The Lord isn't even the same at all as these other gods. He's trying to get across to them that he's not just some power in the world that they can kind of use and hopefully have a better life because of. He is the foundation of the universe itself. He is what we would today think of as God, but they didn't even have that concept in their minds. We've talked about this before too, how if you look back into ancient religions and you keep pushing back further and further, right, as anthropologists, archaeologists do this work, right, we see every culture had all these different gods. They also, almost every culture, and it might be true that it was every culture at one point, has this sort of memory of a high God in the background. Almost like they forgot about it, right? Almost like they knew at one point that there was one God who kind of made everything and was above all the other gods, but really the gods we have to deal with in this life are money and love and all the powers. And the high God kind of faded out of view into the background. That is exactly what happens today in every human life. That's exactly what happens today. We get so caught up with all the stuff that's right in front of us. It's not wrong. We got to do the dishes. We got to earn money. We got to have relationships. We have to do all those things, but we get so caught up in them that the God who made us and controls everything just fades to the background and we forget about him. That's what happened in every culture around the world to our ancestors as well. So at this point, these Israelites don't even have this concept. The Lord, a God like we think of God. So the word here, where it translates as God, this is the word Elohim in Hebrew. And this is crazy. Bear with me for a minute, but I just love this so much. Elohim, originally in the word in Hebrew, it's plural, and it means gods. But very soon, after the Ten Commandments, it's going to mean the one God. And they're going to keep using a plural word to refer to the one God. Okay, so maybe you're lost. What does that mean? Why does Pastor Isaac love that fact so much? Because he's saying, I am the Lord, your gods. I'm all of them. It doesn't mean he's more than one. It means get rid of all those other gods. I am not just one little power in the world. I'm everything. Every power comes from me. I am greater than the whole Egyptian pantheon of gods. And I'm so much greater, which he just demonstrated to them with all the plagues in the Red Sea. I'm so much greater that there's no comparison between the Lord and all the gods of all the nations. And so he reminds them, remember, I just brought you out of Egypt. I just annihilated every god you thought ruled the world. I just laid them all on the mat. And now you're free. That's why you're scared, Israelites, because now you're free. Stunning. All right, let's move a little bit further. I'll ask you these questions. He's saying he's the one who's done all this in their lives. Do you remember who has done all this? Are you right now in your life remembering the one God, or has he faded into the background of your life because of all the stuff that is trying to grab your attention, all the distractions around you? Do you remember who has done all this in your life? Just like the Lord brought them out of Egypt, it's the Lord who caused you to be born. It's the Lord who provided for you all your life. It's the Lord who has led you in your life through all the ups and downs. He has done all this. He is the Lord who's done all these things for you, not just for the Israelites. Do you remember? The second thing that he says is, you shall have no other gods before me. It's very short, but I think now we are in a position to understand more specifically, more vividly, what was meant, what the Lord meant when he gave this command to the Israelites. You shall have no other gods before me. None of these other powers, none of these other things in life can be at the center. Only the Lord can be at the very center of life. He alone is the one that you should be devoted to. Verse 3 carries with it this idea from the ancient world of being devoted to a particular God. You see, in this context where you had all these gods that were worshipped, you had to pick and choose which one you were going to be devoted to more than the others. I suppose people gave sacrifices and offerings to lots of different gods, but people had their favorites. So let's say you were, really these were kind of, we might almost call them personal relationships that they had with these fake gods, really. Let's say you were a trader, or you owned a business in the marketplace in your town in the ancient world. Which god were you probably going to choose to be most devoted to? Well, you were definitely going to offer sacrifices to Hermes, right? Because he's the god of salesmen. He's the god of the marketplace. And that's who you are. You're a salesman, or you're a saleswoman. And so you are going to offer your devotion to Hermes more than to other gods. So you can see this in the Bible, you can see this in lots of historical documents, that people were devoted more or less to particular gods. And what he is saying here, if we were going to, put it into more modern language and more New Testament or even modern church language, you're going to have a personal relationship with none of those other powers. You're only going to have a personal relationship with me. That's what he's saying. You're only going to be devoted to the Lord, to him alone, because he is the center, he is the source. No other power, you can write that in your notes if you want. No other power can be at the center. The center of what? The center of your life. And remember, this is a principle. It's one of the 10 commandments. It's actually the foundational commandment. All the other commandments come out of this one logically. The center, if the Lord is not the center of your life, if you allow yourself to be drawn off so your main energy and attention is focused on some other thing, your life will not function. You will run into reality. Ultimately, your life will fail. It will fail to be what it was meant to be. It will fail to produce the things that God intended it to produce. This is what Jesus meant. Earlier, in our offering time, we looked at the verse where he says, no one can serve two masters. Actually, let me just back up. No one can serve two masters, right? We saw that from Matthew chapter 6. He says, you can't serve both God and money. What does he mean? He's not actually saying you should not serve God and money. He's saying at the deepest place, it's not possible to serve both. You will have one place because you're one person. You will have one place, one person or power that you're devoted to at the center of your life. And that must be the Lord, or your life will not function the way it's supposed to. And we'll wrap up with this thought from the Lord's Prayer. Most of us are probably familiar with the Lord's Prayer, right? We'll say it in a little while. We'll pray it together during communion, the bread and the cup. But you know it, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I don't know how much you've thought about the opening of this prayer and what it actually means. Jesus is addressing himself to the Lord, to his Father in heaven. And then he says this in a language that I often wish we translated this differently. I know there's traditions in how we translate things, and most of us like the word hallowed in this prayer because we're used to it, right? If you start saying the Lord's Prayer, you're going to, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. What in the world does hallowed mean? Most of us don't really know. We don't really know. To most younger people, it just sounds like Halloween, right? And they come from the same source, right? What does hallowed actually mean? It means to make something holy. That's what it means. And what Jesus is saying is, our Father in heaven, let your name be the most holy thing in my life. It's actually very much the same idea as the first commandment. There can be no other gods before Yahweh, before the Lord God. He must be the center. He must be the most holy thing. Not just the idea of him himself, his name must be the very center of my life. Hallowed be your name. What I need to be thinking about, I need to be living in his kingdom, doing things his way in this life. That has to be like the world that I walk around in, God's world. That's what I need to remember. I have to be doing the things he wants me to do in this life. And I have to live it out in this crazy earth the same way it is lived out perfectly in heaven. We're going to stop there today. Lots more to come in this 10 Commandments series. 9 more coming, and they are all related to this first one. But for now, let's pray, and we'll continue in worship.